"I'll give you $1 million if you solve this problem," said the boss to the employee. Robert Miller pushed a thick stack of money across the glass table and fixed his tired eyes on the young employee sitting across from him. The heavy silence of the office was broken only by the muffled sounds of New York City traffic below. "I'll give you $1 million if you solve this problem," said Robert, his deep voice carrying a pain he tried to hide. Jason Thompson swallowed hard, his hands trembling slightly as he looked at the money. At 28, he had worked as an administrative assistant at Robert's construction company for 5 years and had never seen his boss like this. The man known for his coldness and determination was clearly shaken. "Mr. Miller, I don't understand. What kind of problem?" asked Jason, confused. Robert rose from his leather chair and walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. His hands were clenched into fists, and Jason could see the tension in his shoulders. "My mother is missing," he finally said without turning around. "What do you mean missing?" "Elizabeth Miller, 82 years old. She left the retirement home where she lives 3 days ago, and no one knows where she is. The police are looking, but—" Robert paused, swallowing his pride. "I need someone who thinks differently without bureaucratic limitations." Jason adjusted in his chair, trying to process the information. He had known Robert for years, but knew little about his personal family. "Why me, sir? I'm not a detective. I have no experience with this." Robert finally turned, and Jason was surprised to see tears welling in the man's eyes. "Because you have something I lost a long time ago. You see people. You notice details others ignore. Remember when you found out Kevin was stealing supplies because you noticed he always left early on Thursdays?" Jason nodded. He did have a knack for spotting behavioral patterns. "My mother. She has memory lapses. Sometimes she confuses the present with the past, but this time was different. She was very agitated in recent days, talking about strange things, secrets and letters." "What kind of letters?" "The nurse said she received mail last week. After that, my mother grew restless, asking if it was too late to fix past mistakes." Jason felt a chill in his stomach. There was something much deeper to this story. "Do you have that letter?" "No. My mother hid it, and no one could find it. The day she disappeared, a cleaning lady saw her leaving through the back of the retirement home, carrying a small bag." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. Robert returned to the table and sank heavily into his chair. "My mother raised me alone from the age of 10. My father abandoned us and she worked as a cleaner her whole life to give me an education. Today, I have all this," he gestured to the luxurious office, "but I couldn't protect the one person who truly matters." Robert's voice cracked at the end, and Jason realized he was seeing a completely different side of his boss. The man who always seemed in total control was now completely vulnerable. "I'll take the job," said Jason, surprising himself. "But not for the money. I'll do it because I believe every mother deserves to come home." Robert looked at him with a mix of relief and gratitude. "Where do you want to start?" "The retirement home. I want to talk to the people who were around your mother in her last days." An hour later, Jason was at Golden Years Retirement Home, an elegant facility in the Upper East Side of New York City. The director, a middle-aged woman named Margaret, greeted him in the administrative office. "Mrs. Elizabeth was one of our most beloved residents," Margaret explained, "always very polite but reserved. In recent months, she had befriended a new staff member." "Can I speak with that staff member?" "Of course, it's Sarah, our new nursing assistant. She started here 2 months ago." Sarah was a young woman, around 30, with curly hair tied back in a ponytail. When Jason explained the reason for his visit, she seemed genuinely concerned. "Mrs. Elizabeth was special," Sarah said, her eyes welling up. "She reminded me of my own grandmother. We always talked during my night shifts." "What did you talk about?" "She spoke a lot about the past, about the son she raised alone, how hard it was. But in the last few weeks, she was different, more restless." The director mentioned a letter. Sarah hesitated for a moment. "Yes, a letter arrived for her last week. When I gave it to her, she turned very pale. I asked if she was okay, but she just shook her head." "Did she say anything about what was in it?" "The night before she disappeared, she woke me at 3 in the morning. She was crying. Said she'd made a terrible mistake a long time ago and that maybe there was still time to fix it. Jason felt he was getting close to something important. What kind of mistake? She didn't say clearly, but she mentioned something about losing a daughter. I thought it might be her memory playing tricks since Robert is an only child. A daughter? Are you sure? Absolutely. She said, Sarah, do you think a mother can ever forgive herself for giving up her own daughter? I didn't know how to respond. Jason felt a chill. This changed everything. Anything else you remember? She asked about the address of a town upstate, Rochester, said she needed to go there before it was too late. Rochester. Jason mentally noted the information. The letter, did you keep the envelope? Actually, yes. Sarah glanced around and lowered her voice. It was in the trash in her room. I picked it up by accident while cleaning. Thought it might be important. She disappeared for a few minutes and returned with a crumpled envelope. The sender was Mary Anderson Jones from Rochester. Can I take this? Of course. I hope it helps find Mrs. Elizabeth. Jason left the retirement home with more questions than answers. He called Robert from the car. Mr. Miller, I need to ask you a delicate question. Are you absolutely sure you're an only child? The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. Why are you asking that? Your mother mentioned a daughter to one of the nurses, and we have an address in Rochester. That's impossible. My mother never had another daughter. I would know. Sometimes families keep secrets to protect the people they love, Jason said gently. Are you suggesting my mother had another child and never told me? I'm suggesting she may have had reasons not to, and now at 82 she decided it was time to face the past. Jason could hear Robert's heavy breathing on the other end. We're going to Rochester, Robert finally said. Sir? If there's even a chance my mother is there, we're bringing her home. Be ready. We leave in 2 hours. The drive to Rochester took about 2.5 hours. Along the way, Robert stayed silent, clearly processing the possibility of a sister he'd never known. Tell me about your childhood, Jason asked, trying to break the ice. Not much to tell. My father left when I was 10. My mother worked so much I barely saw her. I grew up mostly alone. She never mentioned anything about other children, a previous pregnancy. Never. She always said I was the only good thing that ever happened to her. Maybe that wasn't a lie. Perhaps other things happened that she chose to forget. Robert looked out the car window. If she had another daughter and gave her up, why would she do that? Extreme poverty, lack of support, social pressure. In the 60s, a single mother faced a very harsh reality. You're talking as if you know this happened. I don't, but I've heard many similar stories. Women who made impossible decisions in desperate situations. In Rochester, they went straight to the address on the envelope. It was a modest house in a residential neighborhood with a tiny front garden and a discreet sign, Sweet Home Bakery. It's a bakery, Robert murmured. They parked and walked to the entrance. Through the window, they could see a middle-aged woman arranging bread on a shelf. She had graying hair tied in a bun and wore a floral apron. When the bell rang, the woman looked up. For a moment, she froze, staring at Robert. My God, she whispered. You must be Robert. How do you know my name? The woman approached slowly, her hands trembling. Because you look just like your mother when she was young. She paused, taking a deep breath. My name is Mary Anderson Jones, but everyone calls me Mary. And your mother, she's here. Jason's heart raced. Robert looked as if he'd been punched. Where is she? How did she end up here? She arrived yesterday in the early hours in a taxi. She was confused, tired, but determined. Said she had something important to tell me. And what was it? Mary looked at Robert with a mix of affection and pain. That I'm your sister, and that she came to ask for my forgiveness for giving me up for adoption when I was born. The world seemed to stop around Robert. Jason saw the man lean against the bakery counter, his face completely pale. This can't be true. I understand your shock, Mary said softly. It took me years to process the truth when I found out too. How did you find out? When I turned 18, I got access to my adoption papers. I knew my birth mother's name, but it took me a long time to gather the courage to look for her. And why did you look for her now? Because I got news that I have an illness that might be hereditary. I needed medical information from my biological family. That's when I found out our mother was in a retirement home in New York City. Jason realized he was witnessing a moment that would forever change these people's lives. Where is Mrs. Elizabeth now? Sleeping in the back room. The trip exhausted her. Mary hesitated. Do you want to see her? Robert nodded, unable to speak. Mary led them through the back of the bakery, which also served as the family's home. In a small but cozy room, Elizabeth Miller slept in a single bed, covered by a handmade quilt. Even in sleep, the elderly woman's face showed a peace Robert hadn't seen in a long time. She arrived here crying, Mary murmured. Said she'd kept this secret for 60 years and couldn't carry it alone anymore. Why did she never tell me? Robert asked, his voice choked. Because she was afraid you'd judge her. She said you were all she had and couldn't bear to lose your love and respect. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, Elizabeth stirred in bed and slowly opened her eyes. When she saw Robert, her face lit up, but fear also showed. My son, you found me. Mom, why did you run away? I was worried sick. Elizabeth tried to sit up and Jason helped support her. Because I'm a coward, Robert. I kept a secret I had no right to keep. Why did you never tell me about Mary? Because I was ashamed. Tears began to stream down Elizabeth's wrinkled face. Because I was a terrible mother who abandoned her own daughter. Mary stepped closer and took Elizabeth's hand. You weren't terrible. You were a young woman in an impossible situation. Tell me what happened, Robert asked, sitting beside the bed. Elizabeth took a deep breath, as if preparing to carry a tremendous weight. I was 17 when I got pregnant with Mary. Her father, he was married and disappeared when he found out about the pregnancy. My parents kicked me out of the house. How did you survive? By working in people's homes, cleaning, cooking. I managed to hide my belly until 8 months, but when Mary was born, I had no money and nowhere to live. Robert held his mother's hand. Why didn't you ask for help? From whom? In the 60s, a single mother was considered a disgrace. The social worker said the best thing I could do was give the girl to a family who could provide a better life. And then, 5 years later, I met your father. When I got pregnant with you, he promised we'd stay together, that it would be different. But when you turned 10, Ma, he left us too. Yes, and I blame myself for believing again. I swore you'd never go through what I did, that you'd have everything I couldn't give to... She looked at Mary. To your sister. The silence in the room was heavy. Jason watched the scene, moved by the courage of this woman facing her demons at 82. Mom, I don't judge you, Robert finally said. I admire your strength. How can you say that? I abandoned my own daughter. You made an impossible decision in a desperate situation, and then you spent your whole life making sure it wouldn't happen to me. Mary spoke for the first time, and you gave me the chance to have a family who loved and raised me well. The Joneses were wonderful parents. Do you consider them your real parents? Elizabeth asked, worried. They're my heart's parents, but you're my birth mother, and now I understand you made the best decision you could at the time. Elizabeth cried even harder. I dreamed of this day, but I also feared it. I was afraid you'd hate me. No one here hates anyone, Robert said. We're a family reunited. Jason quietly stepped out, giving them privacy. Outside the room, he could hear soft voices and occasional sobs. About an hour later, the three came out. Elizabeth looked visibly calmer, leaning on her 2 children. What now? Mary asked. How do we move forward? First, I want to get to know my sister better, Robert said. Tell me about your life. They sat in the small living room, and Mary began sharing her story. She'd married John Jones at 22, who died 5 years ago in an accident. They had 3 children, Emily, 26, a nurse, Michael, 23, an engineering student, and Sophie, 19, who worked at the bakery. The bakery was left to us by John. It's our only income, but it's struggling. What kind of struggles? Competition with supermarkets, mounting debts. I'm trying to hold on for the kids, but it's getting harder. Robert thought for a moment. I can help financially. I don't want charity, Mary said firmly. It wouldn't be charity. It'd be an investment and a chance for us to work together. How so? My company builds bakeries and restaurants. I know what works and what doesn't. We could expand this business, modernize it, build something bigger. Mary seemed hesitant. I don't know if I can accept. I've built an independent life. And I respect that, but now we're family. Families help each other. As long as it's a fair deal, not a favor, Mary insisted. Deal? Elizabeth watched the conversation with a smile on her face. Seeing you two talking like this, it's more than I could have dreamed of. At that moment, the front door opened and a young woman walked in carrying shopping bags. It was Sophie, the youngest daughter of Mary. When she saw strangers in the living room, she stopped in surprise. Mom? Sophie, come here. I want to introduce you to your family. The young woman approached curiously. Mary quickly explained the situation. Sophie looked at Robert with interest. So you're my uncle? The businessman Grandma always talked about? Grandma? Robert asked, confused. Mom always told us Grandma Elizabeth existed, even though we had no contact. We always knew we'd meet one day. Robert was stunned. Mary's family had always known about Elizabeth, while he had lived in ignorance for 45 years. Why did you know, and I didn't? Because Mom decided that when the right time came, she would look for Grandma Elizabeth. And if we had siblings, they had the right to know us. And why is now the right time? Asked Jason, who had returned to the room. Because of my illness, Mary replied. I found out I have a hereditary heart condition. My children need preventive exams, and I thought Robert should know too. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Emily and Michael, who had come for lunch. When Mary explained the situation, their reactions were different. Emily, the nurse, was emotional and hugged Robert immediately. Michael, the engineering student, was more reserved, greeting politely but keeping his distance. Michael has always been the most cautious, Mary explained quietly to Robert. He worries people might take advantage of our family. During lunch, Jason observed the family dynamics. Emily kept asking questions about Robert's life, clearly curious about her uncle. Sophie was enchanted by Elizabeth, coaxing stories from her grandmother about the past. Michael barely participated, but watched everything attentively. Michael, where do you study engineering? Robert asked. University of Rochester, 3rd year. That's an expensive program. Yeah, I work part-time to help with expenses. Doing what? Night deliveries, after classes. Robert could see the exhaustion on the young man's face. It was clear the family struggled financially. And what do you plan to do after graduation? Construction would be interesting, but opportunities are scarce without connections. Jason and Robert exchanged a glance. The irony of the situation wasn't lost on them. After lunch, Elizabeth asked to rest, and Mary showed Robert and Jason the bakery. The place was small but well organized, with old but functional equipment. How many loaves do you bake a day? Robert asked. About 300. We sell to the neighborhood and a few small diners. With better equipment and more space, how much could you produce? Maybe 1,000, 1,200. And is there demand for that? I'm sure there is, but I don't have the capital to invest. Robert studied the space, clearly calculating possibilities. Is the lot next door empty? Yes, it's been for sale for 2 years. The owner is asking a high price. How much? $200,000. And for new equipment and renovations? About $300,000 maybe. $500,000 then. That's a lot of money for our reality, Mary sighed. But not for mine. Mary looked at him seriously. Robert, I appreciate the thought, but I can't accept that kind of help. What if it wasn't help? What if it was a real investment, with a contract, profit sharing, shared responsibilities? How so? You have the experience, I have the capital. We form a partnership. You manage operations. I handle the administrative and commercial side. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing, and if it fails, Then we lose money together. But if it works, we build something that can support the entire family for generations." Mary reflected in silence for several minutes. "I need to talk to my children." "Of course. It's an important decision." That night, Mary's family gathered to discuss the proposal. Jason and Robert stayed at a nearby hotel, giving the family space to decide. In the hotel room, Robert was restless. "Do you think she'll accept?" he asked Jason. "Honestly, I don't know. She's a very proud woman, just like my mother. Maybe it's a family trait." Robert smiled for the first time in days. "Jason, thank you for everything. We're not done yet. Your mother still needs to return to New York City, and you need to find a way to keep this family together. You're right, this is just the beginning." The next morning, they returned to Mary's house. The family was gathered in the living room, and the mood seemed tense. "We've reached a decision," Mary announced. "We'll accept the proposal, but with conditions." "What conditions?" "First, everything must be legally documented. Second, we maintain administrative control of the bakery. Third, any major changes must be approved by the whole family." "I accept all the conditions. And there's one more important condition." "What is it?" "We want you and Grandma Elizabeth to move to Rochester for a while. We need to get to know each other better before going into business together." Robert hadn't expected this. "I have a company in New York City, which can be managed remotely for a few weeks," said Michael, speaking for the first time since the discussion began. "If you really want to be part of this family, you need to prove you're not just offering money." "Michael," Emily scolded. "No, he's right," Robert said. "It's a fair condition." "But what about Grandma Elizabeth's retirement home?" Sophie asked. "She can stay with us for a while," Mary said. "We have an extra room, and it would be nice to have her company." Elizabeth, who had been listening quietly, smiled with tears in her eyes. "It would be wonderful to spend time with my children and grandchildren." "Then it's settled," Robert said. "I'll arrange things in New York City and return next week." The following 2 weeks were intense. Robert delegated responsibilities at his company and temporarily moved to Rochester. Jason returned to New York City, but stayed in daily contact, helping with the legal aspects of the new business. The initial adjustment was tough. Robert was used to luxury and convenience, while Mary's family valued simplicity and hands-on work. Tensions flared when Robert suggested changes the family found too drastic. "You're trying to turn our bakery into a factory," Michael complained during a heated argument. "I'm trying to make it financially viable," Robert countered. "Viable for whom? By New York City standards or for our community?" Elizabeth stepped in. "You're both right, Michael. Your uncle has experience growing businesses. Robert, your nephew knows this community better than you." "So what's the solution?" Emily asked. "You need to find a middle ground. Growth that respects the bakery's identity while ensuring financial stability." It was Sophie who suggested the answer. "What if we created a premium artisanal bakery? We keep the quality and tradition, but add value with specialty products." "Like what?" Robert asked. "Specialty breads, custom cakes, gluten-free and lactose-free options. We cater to customers willing to pay more for quality." "And we can supply cafes and restaurants in Rochester," added Michael, clearly excited by the idea. "That makes perfect sense," said Mary. "We keep our essence but expand our reach." Robert realized he had underestimated the business savvy of his new family. "Have you all thought about this before?" "Of course we have," replied Emily. "We just didn't have the capital to invest." The project began taking shape. Robert used his connections to secure better prices for equipment suppliers. Michael applied his engineering knowledge to optimize the expansion layout. Emily leveraged her healthcare network to promote the diet products. Sophie, with her artistic talent, created new packaging and product decoration designs. Elizabeth became the official consultant for traditional recipes, sharing culinary secrets she'd learned over a lifetime. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. The expansion brought new challenges. Demand grew quickly, but production couldn't keep up. Initial costs were higher than expected, and conflicts arose over responsibility distribution. The biggest tension point came when a major regional supermarket offered an exclusive contract for bread supply. The deal would guarantee financial stability, but required them to stop selling to smaller competitors. "This is the opportunity we need," Robert argued. "But it's betraying our loyal customers," Mary countered. "Business requires tough decisions." "And families require loyalty," Michael fired back. The debate dragged on for days. Elizabeth watched her children argue, worried that money might tear apart the family they'd worked so hard to reunite. During one of these discussions, Elizabeth had a moment of mental confusion. She called Robert by her late husband's name and accused Mary of being a stranger trying to steal her family. "Who are you? Why are you in my house?" she shouted, clearly disoriented. Emily, with her nursing experience, managed to calm her grandmother, but the episode shook the whole family. "I think I need to take her back to the retirement home," Robert said, concerned. "No," Elizabeth protested during a moment of clarity. "Please don't send me away now that I've finally found my family." The emotional dilemma compounded their business struggles. The family was under pressure from all sides. It was Jason who suggested a solution during one of his visits from New York City. "What if you split the business into two lines? A premium artisanal line for special clients and a commercial line for the supermarket?" "How so?" Mary asked. "Keep the original bakery serving the local community and small businesses, then create a separate production line with standardized products for the supermarket contract." "Is that possible?" Michael asked. "With the space you have now, yes, and it resolves the conflict between tradition and expansion." The idea was accepted by all. They preserved the artisanal identity of the original bakery while creating a commercial line to meet larger market demands. The first month of the new operation was chaotic. Everyone worked 16-hour days, learning to manage two production lines simultaneously. There were production errors, delivery delays, and moments of extreme tension, but gradually the system began working. The artisanal line maintained closeness with the local community, while the commercial line ensured financial stability. Success brought new challenges. Other towns in the region started requesting supplies. Restaurants in New York City expressed interest in the artisanal products. Demand was growing faster than production capacity. "We need to hire more staff," Mary said. "And maybe open a branch in New York City," Robert suggested. "You're thinking too big," warned Michael. "Growing too fast could bankrupt the company." "Or it could be the opportunity of a lifetime," argued Emily. Elizabeth, who had remained stable in recent weeks, asked to speak with the whole family. "You're forgetting what truly matters," she said. "It's not the size of the business that counts, but the family's unity." "But Grandma, we need to grow to support the whole family," explained Sophie, "and I understand that. But be careful not to lose the essence of what you've built." Elizabeth's words made everyone reflect. They had come together as a family, but were risking division again over the business. Robert made an important decision. "I'll propose something different. We'll grow, but slowly. Open a small branch in New York City, hire a few employees at a time, and keep the business under family control." "And how do we ensure we don't lose control?" asked Michael. "By setting clear rules from the start. Any major decision requires family approval. Profits are split equally, and if anyone wants to leave the business, they have the right to sell their share back to the family." The proposal was accepted after long discussions. They created a family contract that protected everyone's interests and ensured the business remained under family control. The New York City branch opened 6 months later in a small but well-located space. Jason, who had been part of the entire journey, was invited to manage the operation. "I don't know anything about bakeries," Jason protested. "But you understand people and organization," said Robert, "and that's what we need there." The offer included a small ownership stake, turning Jason from an employee into a business partner. "It's our way of thanking you for everything you've done for our family," explained Mary. Jason accepted, moved. He had started this journey as a simple employee, trying to earn extra money, and now became part of an extended family. The first year of the expanded Sweet Home Bakery was challenging, but successful. Both locations operated harmoniously, each maintaining its own identity. Elizabeth settled permanently in Rochester, living with Mary but keeping her independence. Her episodes of confusion became rare, possibly because she felt happier and more cared for. Robert split his time between New York City and Rochester, maintaining his original company, but devoting more attention to the family business. He discovered that working with family brought a satisfaction financial success alone had never provided. The siblings' relationship deepened gradually. Mary let go of her initial distrust and came to value Robert's business experience. He, in turn, learned to appreciate the practical wisdom and community connection she brought to the business. The nieces and nephews also grew. Emily reduced her hospital hours to focus more on the bakery, specializing in dietary products. Michael balanced studies and work, applying his engineering knowledge to optimize processes. Sophie took charge of marketing and design, creating a visual identity that blended tradition and modernity. But the real test for the family came when Elizabeth had a fall and was hospitalized. Doctors discovered she had developed a heart complication related to the same hereditary condition as Mary. During Elizabeth's hospital stay, the whole family gathered. It was then that Robert realized he had found something far more valuable than financial success, a family that genuinely cared for one another. "If we lose Grandma now, after just finding each other," said Sophie, crying. "We won't lose her," said Robert firmly. "She'll be fine." "How can you be sure?" "Because she fought her whole life to bring this family together. She won't give up now." Elizabeth recovered after a delicate surgery. When she returned home, she was physically frailer, but her spirit remained strong. "Do you know what my greatest pride is?" she asked during a family gathering. "What, Grandma?" "Seeing that you've become a real family. Not just by blood, but by choice." "We've always been family," said Robert. "No, my son, you became family, and that's far more beautiful." The company's second year brought new challenges and opportunities. They received an offer to franchise the concept in other cities. The idea was financially tempting, but raised concerns about maintaining family control. "Franchising means losing control over quality," argued Mary. "But it also means sharing our model with more people," defended Emily. "What if we did something different?" suggested Michael. "What if we opened new company-owned locations but always had a family member in charge?" "You're thinking of a true family business," said Jason. "Exactly. Each new location would be run by a family member, keeping our standards and values." The idea evolved into a long-term plan. As younger family members graduated and gained experience, new locations would open. The company would grow organically, always maintaining its family character. Emily proposed setting aside part of the profits for an educational fund for future family members, ensuring everyone had professional development opportunities. Michael suggested the company always maintain a social responsibility initiative, offering internships and opportunities for low-income youth in the community. Sophie wanted the company to preserve its roots, always keeping a space to display the family history and culinary traditions. Elizabeth watched her grandchildren making plans for the future with a smile. "Do you know what you remind me of?" she asked. "What, Grandma?" "The dreams I had when I was young, of having a close-knit family, working together, building something to leave for future generations." "And now you do," said Robert. "Now we do, all of us." The company's third year solidified Sweet Home Bakery as a regional benchmark. They operated 5 locations, 2 in Rochester, 1 in New York City, 1 in Buffalo, and 1 in Syracuse. Each location was run by a family member or someone they trained directly. Annual revenue had surpassed their wildest early dreams, but most importantly, the family had stayed united. Monthly meetings alternated between Rochester and New York City, ensuring everyone participated in major decisions. Jason married a teacher from New York City and had a son, who the family informally adopted as another grandchild for Elizabeth. Robert, who remained single, found purpose in his extended family. Mary became the respected matriarch of the business, combining practical wisdom with commercial vision. Her children grew into leaders in their respective areas while always respecting her guidance. Elizabeth, despite physical limitations, remained the family's soul. Her traditional recipes became the company's signature, and her stories inspired all employees. The most emotional moment of the third year came when Michael graduated with an engineering degree and presented his thesis on optimizing production processes in family businesses, using Sweet Home Bakery as a case study. "This isn't just about engineering," he explained during the presentation. It's about how a family can turn love into economic sustainability. The thesis was awarded by the university and later published as an article in a specialized journal, bringing academic recognition to the family model they had developed. Emily completed a specialization in nutrition and began developing functional products for the company's diet line. Her creations helped people with dietary restrictions rediscover the joy of eating bread and sweets. Sophie enrolled in a graphic design and marketing course, professionalizing her artistic skills. Under her direction, the Sweet Home brand became known not only for product quality, but also for its striking visual identity. The fourth year brought an unexpected proposal. A major supermarket chain wanted to buy the company for an amount that would guarantee financial security for the entire family for generations. The offer sparked the biggest family debate since the business began. "It's a sum that would change our lives forever," argued Emily. "But we'd lose everything we've built," countered Michael. "Not necessarily," Jason reasoned. "We could negotiate terms that preserve the company's essence." "A big corporation would never keep the family character," Mary stated firmly. Robert stayed silent for most of the discussion. When he finally spoke, his answer surprised everyone. 4 years ago, I would have accepted this offer without hesitation. Money was my only measure of success. And now? Now I know some things are priceless. This business isn't just a company. It's the fulfillment of our mother's dreams, our children's future, our identity as a family. So your answer is no? My answer is that each of you must decide for yourselves. If the majority wants to sell, I'll respect it, but you must understand you'll be selling far more than a business. Elizabeth, who had listened silently, asked to speak. "Want to know what I think?" "Of course, Grandma." "I think you've all grown enough to make this decision yourselves. Whatever choice you make, if it's made with love and everyone's well-being in mind, it'll be the right one." The vote was secret. Each family member wrote their decision on paper. When the votes were counted, the result was unanimous. All chose to keep the family business. "Why?" Robert asked, curious about their individual reasons. "That's because here I can make a difference," said Emily. "At a corporation, I'd just be another employee." "Because this is the future I want to build for my children," said Michael. "Because our brand represents our values, and they can't be bought," said Sophie. "Because I've learned inheritance isn't just money, it's purpose," said Jason. "And me," said Mary. "Because I finally understand my buried daughter wasn't a mistake. She was the seed of all this that bloomed." Robert looked around the table at determined, united faces. "Then let's keep growing, but our way." The company's 5th year was marked by consolidation and future planning. They established a formal family council with clear governance and succession rules. They created an educational fund benefiting not just the family, but also young people in the community. Their social responsibility programs turned the company into a force for positive change in the cities where they operated. Elizabeth, now 87, still attended family meetings, though less often. Her wisdom and historical perspective remained valued by all. On a sunny December afternoon, the whole family gathered at the original Rochester Bakery to celebrate the company's 5th anniversary. The place had been renovated but kept the warm atmosphere that always defined it. Elizabeth was sitting in a special chair, watching her children, grandchildren, and employees celebrating together. Her face showed deep peace. "You know what I remember right now," she said to Robert, who was sitting beside her. "What, Mom?" "The night you were born. I was alone, scared, not knowing what the future held. I never imagined that baby would become the man who brought our family together. You were always strong, even when I didn't see it. And you became so much more than I could dream. Not just successful, but a good man. I learned from you. No, my son, you learned from life, and from this beautiful family we found." Mary approached the two, holding a framed photograph. "Look what I found in the old city archives." It was a photo of a young Elizabeth, about 20 years old, holding a baby in her arms. On the back was written, "Elizabeth and her daughter, 1963. It's the only photo left of the two of you together," Mary explained, emotional. Elizabeth held the photo with trembling hands, tears streaming down her face. I thought I'd lost all memories of that time. The memories were never lost, Mom. They were just waiting for the right moment to return. The party continued until late afternoon. There was music, food, laughter, and many stories being told and retold. Employees, longtime customers, neighbors, and friends joined the celebration, showing how Sweet Home Bakery had become more than a business. It was a community hub. As the sun began to set, Elizabeth asked to speak to the whole gathered family. I want you all to know this was the happiest day of my life. Why, Grandma? Because I saw a family that loves each other, works together, and faces challenges united. I saw dreams coming true and traditions being preserved. I saw the future being built with the hands of the present. And what else do you see when you look at us? Emily asked. I see that love always finds a way, that past mistakes can turn into present blessings. And that family isn't just blood, it's choice, commitment, forgiveness. Grandma, you'll be with us for a long time yet, Sophie said. I'll stay as long as God allows, but even when I'm no longer here physically, I'll be in every recipe you make, in every decision you make for the family, in every time you choose love over fear. Robert stood and raised a toast. To Elizabeth Miller, the bravest woman I've ever known. To Mary, who taught us pride and humility can coexist. To my nieces and nephews who showed me youth and wisdom aren't opposites. To Jason, who proved family is who we choose to love. And to all of us, who turned pain into healing, secrets into truth, and loneliness into unity. Cheers! Everyone shouted in unison. That night, after the guests had left, the family sat in a circle in the bakery's back room. Elizabeth was at the center, surrounded by everyone she loved. Do you want to know my last wish? She asked. Not last, Grandma. Your next wish, Michael corrected. Elizabeth smiled. My next wish is that you promise me one thing. Anything. Promise that no matter what happens in the future, no matter what challenges you face, you'll always remember your family. And that family is the most precious thing there is. We promise, they all said together. And promise you'll keep telling our story, so others know it's never too late to start over, to forgive, to find the ones we love. We promise. Elizabeth closed her eyes, a serene smile on her face. She was surrounded by love, after a lifetime of searching for it. 6 months later, Elizabeth passed away peacefully in her sleep at Mary's home. Her departure brought sorrow, but also gratitude for all the love she had planted and watched bloom. The funeral was a reflection of her life, simple, yet full of love. Hundreds of people attended, from bakery customers to business owners Robert had met over the years. Everyone shared stories about how Elizabeth had touched their lives in some way. During the wake, an elderly woman approached Mary. I knew your mother when you were just a baby. What do you mean? I worked at the household where she cleaned when you were born. I saw how hard that decision was for her. I want you to know she cried for weeks. Why are you telling me this? Because seeing you all today, this whole family together, I know she was right. Her love found a way to bring you together, even after all these years. After the funeral, the family gathered to read Elizabeth's will. She had left an envelope for each of them, with a personal letter and a special recipe. The letter to Robert read, My dear son, you've made me prouder than any mother could ask for. Not just because of your success, but because of the generous man you've become. Keep looking after our family. The love you've planted will keep growing long after we're gone. To Mary. My daughter at heart, forgive a mother who made hard choices in hard times. You became an incredible woman, and I'm sure you were deeply loved by the Joneses. They were your parents in heart, but you were always my soul's daughter. For the grandchildren, she had written advice about love, work, family, and dreams. To Jason, a letter thanking him for being the one who brought the family back together. But the last letter was addressed to the whole family. My dear children, grandchildren, and son of my heart, this isn't goodbye, it's see you later. Wherever I am, I'll be watching over you. Keep being a real family. Keep building dreams together. And always remember, love is the only inheritance that truly matters, because it's the only one that multiplies when shared. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. Do you believe Elizabeth made the right choices in her life? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss other heartwarming stories.